First, let's clear something up. Libertarianism is not liberalism. Liberalism generally emphasises government intervention to ensure equality and social welfare, whereas libertarianism prioritises maximum individual freedom and minimal state control. Imagine waking up tomorrow in a world where every choice you make is dictated by law. What you eat, where you work, how you worship, who you love, even what you say online. Now imagine the opposite, a world where your freedom is absolute, but every decision is your responsibility, every consequence yours to bear. Which world would you prefer? By the end of this episode, you'll understand why libertarianism isn't just a political philosophy. It's a lens through which to question authority, morality, and the very purpose of society itself. At its heart, libertarianism is simple. Freedom above all. Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of religion, and freedom from religion. Freedom of the press, economic freedom, and property rights. The principle is that you own yourself, your body, your labour, your choices. Metaphorically, think of this society as a garden. Libertarianism says, let each plant grow without interference, but don't trample your neighbour's flowers. Libertarians reject the forced redistribution of wealth, mandatory state welfare, and any coercion that limits individual initiative. Instead, they argue for personal responsibility, voluntary cooperation, and private charity. Alexis de Tocqueville warned of the tyranny of the majority when democratic decisions override individual rights. But modern libertarianisms add a twist. Often, we see a tyranny of the minority, where powerful interest groups hijack democracy to benefit a few while claiming to represent the many. Think of it like a board game. The rules are meant to protect players, but one player buys all the dice and the chips. Suddenly, the game is rigged. Libertarianism fights to protect the rules and the player's autonomy. The DNA of libertarianism stretches back to Enlightenment. John Locke said life, liberty, and property are natural rights. Government's role is to protect them. Montesquieu, who said that separation of powers to prevent the state from becoming the predator. And then Adam Smith, who said economic freedom allows humans to reach their God-given potential without interference. Libertarianism influenced the founding fathers of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, and the Declaration of Independence, a document essentially saying government exists to protect freedom, not to grant it. So imagine you're stranded on an island with a dozen people. There's no government, no police, no rules, only agreements between individuals. How do you survive? How do you trade, protect property, or resolve disputes? Libertarians argue that humans can self-organize voluntarily without coercion. Trust, contracts, and reputation are far more effective than forced enforcement. This island is a miniature lens to understand how societies could function without unnecessary government interference. Libertarianism isn't monolithic. There are two main branches. One is rights libertarianism, absolute ownership of one's body and property. Non-aggressive principle is that using force against another is inherently illegitimate, except self-defense. You may accept minimal government to protect rights. And the radical version is anarcho-capitalism, eliminate government entirely. Thinkers like Robert Nozick and Murray Rothbard were important here. And then you get consequentialist libertarianism. Liberty is justified because it produces the best outcomes for society. Focus on maximising human happiness and economic efficiency comes. Thinkers like Milton Friedman, Friedrich Hayek, Ludwig von Mises were important thinkers here. So there is a left versus right to libertarianism too. Left libertarianism say freedom plus egalitarian access to natural resources often aligns with anti-war, labour and cooperative movements. And then right libertarianisms, freedom plus strong capitalism and limited government, less focus on resource redistribution, more on protecting property and contracts. The metaphor here is imagine a river. Left libertarians argue that everyone should have access to the water. Right libertarians argue that water should flow freely, but those who own wells can manage it themselves, as long as they don't poison the river. Libertarianism is not utopian. It faces real questions. Can a society remain free without inequality spiraling out of control? How do you prevent powerful corporations from becoming de facto governments? How do libertarians handle emergencies like pandemics or climate crises without a centralised authority? So imagine a city with zero government. Suddenly a hurricane hits. Who builds shelters? Who coordinates relief? Libertarians would argue voluntary networks, charity, and market solutions often outperform forced state bureaucracy, but the experiment challenges us to think deeply about trade-offs. In practice, libertarianism shows up in cryptocurrencies, the decentralized finance freeing people from state-controlled money, digital privacy advocacy, resisting surveillance, and voluntary associations, co-ops, charities, and mutual aid networks replacing state welfare. It's the philosophy of freedom with responsibility, not chaos. Libertarianism is like sailing in open waters. You are the captain of your own ship. No lighthouse dictates your course. Storms come, you navigate. Success or failure is your own. Some fear this freedom because it demands personal accountability. Others embrace it because it empowers human potential. Every law that limits choice, every tax that coerces, every policy that favours one group over another, libertarians ask, is this freedom or tyranny? Because you'll see now why libertarianism is more than politics. It's a radical call to respect individual sovereignty in a world that too often forgets it. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow, like and subscribe. And just a quick shout out to our sponsors. Strong Coffee Company, protein-packed coffee for energy and clarity. Use code Vancrux1 for 20% off at strongcoffeecompany.com. And then there's More Labs, clinically proven hydration and recovery drinks. Use code Vancrux1 for 25% off at morelabs.com. And finally, liquor gummies, electrolytes and vitamins for hangover prevention. Use code Vancrux1 for 20% off at liquor.com. That's liquure.com.